This is the Suunto Race S, and in this case, S stands for smaller, or just slightly smaller size, a slightly smaller battery life, and a slightly smaller price tag. But if you're still thinking that this watch might not be for you, you might be super surprised to find out that the Suunto Race S also has a new, more accurate heart rate sensor, and more storage space, and an even faster and more responsive user interface. Okay, first things first, if you're gonna pick up the Suunto Race S, it'll set you back $349. And let me say that again, $349 or 349 euros for a watch that has multi-band GPS, mapping, 50-meter water resistance, and a super bright 1.32-inch AMOLED touchscreen display. And the display is a little bit smaller than the Suunto Race, but it's actually the same resolution. So the Race S just has a slightly higher pixel density. And I was already amazed at the price of the Suunto Race at $450. So seeing this watch with pretty much all the same features for $100 less was a very pleasant surprise. Now, I've been seeing this watch fall in and out of stock, so I'm guessing that Suunto is having a hard time keeping up with demand here. Now, if you do happen to get your hands on one, in the box, you'll see the watch itself, a little sticker pack, getting started guide, and instructions here. But for the most part, you're gonna wanna use the Suunto mobile app to update the firmware, download maps, and you can even create routes using the application. You can use a little heat map here to see where other people have been running or hiking, or you can import routes from Strava. And then also in the box is the same magnetic charger that comes with the Suunto Race. And I'm not the biggest fan of this particular charger. It's fine. It's just that like the two conductive charging pieces have to be lined up exactly right, or else it doesn't charge. Now you have 5 color options to choose from. So that's black, light pink, light gray, warm gray, orange, and blue. Some of these colors, the gray, the orange, and the blue, they have this slight gradient to them on the band. For example, the blue has this green gradient, and you can see that this orange one, the one that I'll be showing throughout this video, has a purple gradient to it. But these are all 22mm silicone watch bands, and you could actually have a few different colors if you wanted to, so you could occasionally mix it up if you wanted to do something like that. Suunto sells all of these different colors, so you could do the yellow or the purple if you wanted to, and Suunto sells those for like $50. Or if you want to explore Amazon, you can get these 22mm watch bands for significantly less. And I'll link some stuff if you guys want to check that out. But I really like the watch band that Suunto provides here. It has this little button plug attachment, and the silicone seems to stretch just enough to ensure a snug fit. And I actually do suggest that you try to wear your watch a little bit more snug and kind of push it up and away from the wrist joint when you're actually out running and you're trying to get the most accurate heart rate readings possible. You kind of want to eliminate any sort of normal sunlight from getting in between the actual watch and your skin. And you also want to reduce any sort of bouncing the watch could do, just because optical heart rate sensors are looking for your pulse using its own light emitting diodes. And this is actually a new optical heart rate sensor, which is huge because, in my opinion, this is probably one of the biggest advantages of the Suunto Race S over the Suunto Race. If you actually remember my review of the Suunto Race, I was a huge fan of the watch, but I was seeing some pretty crummy heart rate tracking results Here, check this out. On this run, I was using the Suunto Race, the Garmin Epix, and the Garmin Enduro 2 that was connected to a chest heart rate strap. And in general, I'd consider the chest heart rate straps to be kind of like the gold standard for accuracy when comparing heart rate data. But you can see just how badly the Suunto Race did in this situation. Now, I remember trying to stop and actually get it to lock back on to the actual correct heart rate, and it just wasn't happening that particular day. But here, take a look at this. We're looking at the all-new Suunto Race S with its updated optical heart rate sensor, and I did the exact same run with the exact same watches, the Garmin Epix and the Garmin Enduro 2 connected to the same heart rate strap. And as you can see, the data looks a lot more accurate here. I will say that you can tell by the dip in all of these that I probably was getting distracted talking to people on the trails. But before you all run out and go buy the Suunto Race S over the Suunto Race, we should definitely talk about a few other things, namely the battery life. Now with the Suunto Race, I was getting somewhere between 6 and 8 days. I always use these watches and they're always on display mode, and that's just because that's what I prefer. But you can use this in its like raise to wake mode and you'll see significantly more time. With the Suunto Race S, I'm seeing about, I'd say 2/3 of that battery life. So maybe like 4 or 5 days, or you would get something like 8 to 10 days or so with that raise to wake mode set. But remember that battery life is largely going to depend on how much or how many GPS activities that you've actually been doing. GPS is actually a pretty big drain on the battery. So if you are doing like an ultra marathon on one day, definitely don't expect to get an additional week out of the battery from these watches afterwards. And because of that, we basically look at battery life in these two different ways, like a daily use amount of battery life and a GPS training amount of battery life. And what's cool is that both the Suunto Race and the Suunto Race S have these 4 different GPS battery life modes. It's actually set up so that you can change it on the beginning of each run, but you'll see like performance, endurance, ultra, and tour. And these battery profiles will make adjustments to the type of GPS used and the display and the mapping and the Bluetooth, how often the data is logged, a few other metrics. So it's pretty easy to adjust the battery mode in order to aim to get as much out of the battery life as you need for your particular GPS training activity. But similar to daily use, you'll see about 2/3 the battery life of the Suunto Race with the Suunto Race S. You know, and regardless of which mode that is. So you might see something like 30, 40, 60, and 120 hours in each of those respective battery life modes, with the 30 hours being that most precise GPS mode. And I assume that that's using the watch in its like multi-band dual frequency GPS mode, meaning that it can connect to multiple types of satellite systems and use multiple frequencies from those satellites to give you the most accurate GPS tracks. And I didn't have a ton of issues with the Suunto Race when it came to the GPS accuracy, and the same thing with the Suunto Race S. It's been, I would say, rock solid when doing my local trail runs here. And I think to really push the multi-band GPS accuracy, we might need to do some runs through some, deep city stuff, some tall buildings downtown, or maybe like a large canyon wall or something like that, where single frequency GPS devices might get tripped up a little bit. But either way, 30 or 40 hours, depending on the battery mode that you select, it still seems like a solid amount of battery life for those of you guys that want to consider this watch for doing an ultra marathon. Now, I also want to mention that the Suunto Race S has a Gorilla Glass lens and not a sapphire lens across the watch face. The watch body itself is plastic, and it doesn't have that etched titanium or stainless steel watch body casing to it. To me, overall, it does feel like a cheaper watch. A few other things changed. There's some new watch faces in here, and these new watch faces are customizable. So if you're using a watch face with a little widget, those widgets can be changed out. And then the user interface is actually a little bit more responsive compared to the Suunto Race. And the Race S is actually manufactured in Finland as opposed to China, which is kind of cool to see. Although I wonder with the shortages that they've been having of this watch, if they're going to move some of that manufacturing back to China. I have no idea. Okay, so I've been comparing this watch to the extremely similar Suunto Race, kind of its big brother, if you will. The Race costs $450 or $550 if you get the titanium edition. The titanium edition also had more memory. It was 16 gigs versus 32 gigs when you paid for that higher end edition. But lucky for us, the Suunto Race S does come with 32 gigs of storage by default. And that storage, it's largely going to be used for maps on this device. The Suunto Race and the Suunto Race S, they can control music that's playing on your smartphone, but it doesn't have internal music or a way to connect Bluetooth headphones directly to the watch and listen to music by leaving your phone at home or something like that. Comparing this watch to the Garmin Forerunner 165, which costs either $250 or $300 for the music edition, which can store music within the device itself, again connecting Bluetooth headphones directly to the watch. But I like the 165. It's a watch that I do recommend to quite a bit of runners and quite a few people on this channel, but the 165 doesn't have any sort of mapping. It has breadcrumb navigation, but you can't see roads or trails or water types of any sort. And the 165 doesn't have multi-band GPS. So to get that, you actually have to bounce up to either the Garmin Forerunner 255 or the Forerunner 265. The 265 is probably a little bit more comparable to the Suunto Race S, just because they both have these bright AMOLED displays, but the 265 also cost $450, so pretty big bump up in price there. And while there is navigation, it's still that breadcrumb style navigation. And interestingly, the mapping on the Suunto Race S actually saved my bacon when I was out running on the beach with my older brother, and we actually needed to find our trail that led us back out to the car. But I would say that it is definitely important to note that the mapping here on the Suunto is definitely different than what Garmin's high-end devices provide, which is more like true mapping and navigation. On Garmin maps, you'll see a good bit more detail, things like street names and points of interest. And these Suunto maps, they're not gonna really be able to do things like rerouting if you do end up getting pretty far off path and you wanna try to navigate back a slightly different way. It's just not quite designed the same way for navigating on a map as something like a Garmin map. But the Suunto Race S, it also has introduced something new here called Suunto Climb Guidance, and that's new as of the Race S. I actually haven't been using it all that much over the past month and a half or so that I've actually been testing this watch, but it basically works similar to Garmin's Climb Pro if you're familiar with that feature. So if you have a route planned, you'll get a list of hills and information with where you're at on a climb, how far you have to go, and specific details about the hill. So overall, I'm super impressed with this Suunto Race S. It's kind of astonishing that Suunto has loaded one of their most affordable watches with all of their best features. And I wouldn't say that it's built to be as nice a watch as their vertical or their normal race edition watch, but it's also interestingly better than those devices in a few small ways. In particular, like the heart rate accuracy piece. and it actually makes for a tricky purchasing decision. What do you guys think? Have any of you guys actually tried any watches from Suunto? Have you had good luck with the brand? Let me know in the comment section what you think. But either way, GPS watch or no watch at all, I really do hope that you're getting out there, swimming, biking, running, rinsing, and repeating it all over again. And we will see you guys in the next one.